right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining Karate Unity's podcast here. We have a very special guest here, Wim Demir. I'm so excited to have you on. Thanks for coming, Wim. For those of you who don't know who you are, if you can give a quick introduction and also just tell us where to find you.
Sure. So my name is Wim de Meer. I'm from Belgium. I'm 48 now, and I've been training in a variety of martial arts and self-defense styles for the past 35 years. Most of you guys will know me either from my blog, which is wimsblog.com, that I've been working on. My blog is a reincarnation from my very first website that I did, I think, about 25 years ago when the internet was still new. I stopped doing that site for a while, and then when blogging started taking off, I was like, okay, I want to do something on the internet. Let's give this a try. And that was 20 years ago, and it's still there. So wimsblog.com, that's where a lot of people know me from, because I've written hundreds of articles and made a bunch of stuff there. There's also a bunch of books that I wrote at first together with Loren Christensen, because he kind of took me under his wing and showed me the ropes. Yes, that's me doing the sidekick on the cover. And then I wrote a bunch of my own. I did a bunch of videos with Paladin Press before they stopped operation, and now I'm still going. I'm very passionate about martial arts and self-defense. So I write, I make videos. I have a Patreon channel that is coming up to almost 4 years now. So there's about 600 posts there. Dozens of hours of video instruction. So much stuff that I'm doing there. I think that's pretty much it. Best way to find me is wimsblog.com. And I recently started an MMA site as well. So that's MMAformula.com. You go there. I've got a YouTube channel in which I do breakdowns.
I didn't know about that.
They know that? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I didn't know about that.
I've had it for a while, but I just recently finished doing the website because with the pandemic and everything, life got hectic. And what I do there is mainly just talk about martial arts, show techniques, etc., and do breakdowns of usually either knockouts or of fights, but mostly about knockouts that happen in the UFC. And I just slow everything down, draw on the screen, and with my coaching software, just talk about what I see happening. And that's starting to go well. There's a lot of people seem to enjoy those videos. The fans are outspoken.
Yeah.
That's the least I can say.
Yep.
And that's a lot of fun too. So let me put it this way: if I could, I would pretty much train in almost all martial arts. Because I like them all. Some of them are more to my taste than others, in the sense that some of them are a better fit for me than others. But I don't distinguish in the sense that I don't see that one is better than the other or that one is superior or all that stuff. It's just that fly your flag, do whatever you want to do, training what you want to train, and I'll do the same. And it's a big world out there, plenty of space for everybody.
Well said. I just took a note to bookmark that topic because I really want to talk to you about that later. Karate Unity is all about cross training. It's about bringing people together and training with everyone, man. So I basically got a hold of you through this book right here, Loren Christensen Solo Training. I've got the Solo Training series, and I've got the Fighter's Fact book. And I basically came across this resource because there was an evolution in my training. Like I did traditional karate for a long time, Shorin-ryu, and we were stuck in the drill sequence phase, the very static bunkai and things like that. So I got very frustrated simply because I got beaten up by a boxer one day in a friendly match. It basically light bulbs came on in my head in terms of like, oh man, my cardio sucks, my footwork is off, the way I hold my hands, this and that, and like the whole mental game around sparring changed just from getting beaten up. And so I got into combat sports for a bit. And then I ventured into the whole RBSD, the reality-based self-defense. And so one of my coaches said, check out Richard Dimitri, check out Ian Abernathy, check out Loren Christensen, check out these guys. So I came across, Loren caught my eye because Loren is a hardcore karate guy as well, and apparently he's a good friend of yours.
Yep.
And so I came when I came across this, especially this particular page here, on page 54, where you guys where you were demonstrating plyometric jumps and leaping
Yeah.
lunges and just the whole functional fitness thing. That kind of Wim, that took my
There's a story
training to.
there.
Oh yeah, please, yeah, tell me about that. So yeah, if you wanna, since it's fresh in your mind, go ahead. Tell me
Yeah,
about that. Yeah,
just because you show me the pictures. So
yeah,
I was pretty much fresh off the plane.
yeah,
And Lauren asked, "Hey, do you want to do some pictures for my book?" I'm like, "Sure." So I put my shorts on, my t-shirt, my training shoes,
yeah,
and he gave me those weights, and I did those. I think it's jumping split squats or
yeah,
something along the
yeah. They're
line.
jumping plyo squats. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
leaping lunges. You called it. Yeah,
Yeah, and it was scorching hot out there. So you have to picture me jet lagged and in the heat and just trying to do that right. And I was very happy that Lauren was able to snap the pictures very quickly because I
yeah,
don't know if I could have gone on for a long time. It was pretty heavy weights to boot.
yeah,
So
yeah. You've got about like I
yeah,
think 30 pounds a
um,
hand. It looks
it
like
was pretty
30 or
heavy. Yeah,
25. Yeah,
I don't remember, but I remember like crap. I won't be able to do 50 sets of 25 with this. That's not going to happen.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
uh, no, Lauren in many ways is kind of like the father I never had. He's a mentor to me. He took me under his wing well over 20 years ago, about 25 years ago. I met him through the Animal List, and that is Mark McYoung's
Mark McCann.
email
Yeah,
list.
right.
We met there. We kind of got talking off list, and we kind of hit it off, like a very similar mindset. And he was very kind to me in that he kind of liked my writing on my original website where I did book reviews, video reviews, and articles. And he said like, "Hey, do you want to do a book together?" I'm like, the what? So the Loren Christensen wants to write a book together.
Yep.
And I'm like, I don't know. Sure, but I didn't consider myself a writer. In many ways, I still don't. But I
Was
first
this
wrote
like
an article,
20 years ago, you think?
I think about 25 years ago,
25 years ago.
something
Yeah.
along those lines.
Yeah.
Because I'm
Wow.
kind of hazy with the dates now because it's been so
Yeah.
long.
Yeah.
But yeah, about 25 years ago,
Wow.
and that's when he taught me how to write nonfiction and how to write specifically for the martial arts, for self-defense, how to structure a book, how to make chapters and so on. And the funny part is that at first I was like, holy crap, I better not mess this up. And at the same time, tried to do a decent job and very tentative because I mean, he's Loren W. Christensen. People have
Yeah.
no idea how good he is and
Yeah.
what kind of incredible stuff that. I mean, he's led an amazing life. He's done so many things and has been in so many scrapes and fights and such an
Yep.
intimate experience with violence
Yep.
that like nowadays there's a lot of stuff, the YouTube experts and so on. The vast majority of those guys can't even reach his ankles when it
Right.
comes to real life experience, like putting your life on the line, having somebody come at you with knives and having somebody shoot at you and
Yep.
or was an MP in Vietnam.
Yep. Yep.
So, and he's written several books that are kind of like his memoirs, and people should read those and kind of consider that it's your job to kind of arrest like a Green Beret or something who doesn't want to go where you want him to go or needs to get back. And you're the guy whose job it is to like, okay, dude, you're coming with me. And yeah, so yeah, you're going to fight this Green Beret who's in a war zone. Yeah, good luck with that. And that was his
Yep.
job.
Yep.
So I was very lucky in that he was very patient with me and explained a lot of things to me that me being young and very stupid didn't understand right away. And I learned a lot from him. And that kind of got me started. So I visited him a few times, stayed at his place, and this was one of the times. It's just when I saw the picture, that's why
Yeah.
I remembered. Like, yeah, I remember that day. It was a
Yeah.
lot of fun, though. I mean, I always enjoy working with Loren. It's always
Yeah.
great.
No, thanks for sharing that. It makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of things I didn't know. Like I knew you guys were affiliated, but I didn't know the strength and depth of your relationship. So and the connection to writing too. That it makes a lot of sense now because when I put both of your writings together and styles and stuff, I can see very similar kind of logical train of thought. Like you have a main idea, you have your sub bullets, and then there's points and breakouts, and it's very light and to the point. I love it, man. When I bought the solo training series, I'm telling you, this is a well-used book. I've got pencil marks in here, sticky notes in it. I use this a lot, and like a lot of people, it's unfortunate. A lot of people don't know of his material, like at least in Canada anyway. And it's a shame because he's one of the original pioneers, I find, for kind of putting practical stuff together, along with you too. Like when I discovered his stuff, then I came across yours, and then I constantly read your blogs, and I bought your one of my favorite and I really mean this resource is your guide to heavy bag training. I love that resource, bro. I have the DVD companion as well, and I make lesson plans for myself and for my students off of that. So thank you for doing all that kind of all the stuff you do, man.
My pleasure. And just to one of the reasons why our writing is so similar is that I think one of the reasons why Loren and I got along so well is that we both like to do solo training.
Yes.
A lot of people, if they can't go to class, they don't enjoy training. They don't want to do it by themselves. And I'm like, I always love to do solo training because I could do what I wanted, or like improve something that I was having difficulty with. And maybe my training partner was doing fine with that. And I felt like, no, I need to work on this technique. So I would come home after class and train some more because I was afraid that I would forget, or I was like, no, I messed that up. I need to be better. And Loren had a very similar mindset. So that was where we connected. And another reason is that by the time we got to working together, I had done a variety of martial arts already and styles and combat sports. And so had he. And I was ready to listen to what he had to say at that point. Like, when the time is ready, the teacher comes, that kind of thing. Yeah. So I was ready to hear what he had to say. And one of the most profound things that he mentioned one time is that he said, look, there are no bad techniques. There are only techniques that are incorrectly used at the wrong time.
Yes.
And we can argue about this. I mean, if you take it to extreme, sure, eventually you'll get to the point where you find bad techniques. But that's kind of people, insisting on not listening to the wisdom that is in that statement. Right. And that is that many techniques can work. Many techniques can work if you apply them properly in the right context.
Yep.
The example Loren gave to me said, look, one time there was this guy, it was either a knife or a screwdriver, I don't remember, when he was a police officer who tried to stab him. And it was a surprise attack, and he grabbed the guy's wrist, and he did an Aikido joint lock on the wrist. And he said, I would tell my students to never do that. Don't do that technique because it doesn't work and this and that, and you can't control the arm. And he did it. And he said that's one example. And I've had similar examples that people say, I know that doesn't work. I'm like, sure it does, because I did it. And that doesn't mean that it's for everybody.
Yep.
That doesn't mean that because I could do it 20 years ago that I will still do it today. That's not what it means. What it means is that if you discount the possibilities from the get-go, like, all right, oh, this is crap, this doesn't work. I'm like, okay. And that brings me, I've got a Facebook group. And the name of the Facebook group is You Are Not Ares. Ares, the god of war.
You are not. How do you spell the last part?
Ares, A-R-E-S. So Ares, the Greek god of war.
Oh, okay.
And the reason is because I started saying that when people are like, yeah, but this is great and that style sucks and that doesn't work. I'm like, you're not the god of war. You don't get to decide that. Who are you that you know all the different styles there are? And that you fought all the different kind of peoples there are. You've used all those weapons, strategies, tactics, and so on, that you can decide that, that doesn't work. What I learned from Loren basically was that, look, okay, we all have preferences. We all have things that works for you, not for me, vice versa. And that's all fine. And then there's context, like, well, maybe you shouldn't do that jump spinning back kick, when you're surrounded by 5 guys. Maybe that's a bad idea.
Right.
So context matters. But that doesn't mean that it won't be able to work for somebody else. And it's like I said when we just started, it's a huge world out there. There's plenty of space for everybody. Everybody can do their own thing and do their own style. And if you can make it work for you, that's awesome. I'm happy for you. And I'll just say then, you know what, Chris, that's not really my thing, but
Yeah.
that doesn't invalidate what you do. And if you say, you know, Wim, your style is not really for me, well, that doesn't mean that all of a sudden what I do is crap.
Right.
More than one thing can be good at the same time. It's
Oh
not
man,
zero
I
sum.
I love this. I love the fact that you're mentioning this. You know, to me, like this type of realization is a sign of maturity, I think, and just open to trying different things. I mean, what you're saying makes sense. I mean, I never like to say that. I never like to think in absolutes. This is not going to work or whatever, because my disclaimer to that is it depends, right?
Yeah.
It depends on context. Like for example, like one of my coaches, um, Sam Lampini here in Toronto. He was a former bouncer, and so he's got a lot of door experience in this and that. And sometimes when he got in some altercations, because of his body mechanics and his body type, he's a tall guy. He's got really flexible hip flexors, right? And he was a former Savat champion as well.
Yeah.
So he himself can kick, so he used a lot of high kicks to the shoulder, to the head, just to keep somebody off, and he made it happen. And he would show us how he did it. Now a lot of us couldn't do it because of various reasons.
Yep.
I couldn't do it. I would have to modify that in terms of like make some space and things. But like, as you said, I mean, I think anything is possible if you find the right context and if your body allows it, man.
Yeah. I wrote an article on my blog many years ago. There was a series I did called Martial Arts Myths. So things that people believe, and one of them was martial arts myths. High kicks don't work in the street, which is nonsense because I've done it, and I have a bunch of videos in that article showing like here's a guy doing a high kick in the street.
Yeah.
But then we get to this kind of weird thing that we have had. We've always had it. I'm old enough, and I guess you too, to remember the time before the internet. It was also there, but then it was people reading magazines and then writing in letters to the magazine, and now it's all social
Black
media. And and then we would argue amongst ourselves, and it's the same level of arguments that you see nowadays online. Is that people don't know how to reason anymore, how to discuss a position and then listen to the opposing side and so on. My point is that just because I say that it's a myth that high kicks don't work in the street, that doesn't mean that I said that they're the best idea ever for everybody. I didn't say that.
Right.
And this, it's kind of this disconnect that people have, is that if they hear you say one thing and they automatically assume that a bunch of other things that you're of that opinion as well, which is fundamentally not the case. And then we're stuck, because then they don't hear you anymore when you say, well, no, that's not what I meant. What I said is that it can happen. That doesn't mean that you have to start doing high kicks. It only means that, when you say that this doesn't work, and I say, well, how do you explain that it worked for me? And then it's like, and they don't know what to say. I'm like, I'm not attacking you. I'm just saying, like, okay, I was able to make this work. I've got a truckload of friends who had the same thing. I've got one guy that I used to know who I trained with a lot, and we beat each other up like pretty bad. And he hadn't done high kicks for years. And then one time he was in this really, really intense fight, and first move he did was a high kick and knocked the guy out. So like, how can you tell somebody like that no, it doesn't work?
No, I know, man. It's frustrating, like to your point. I was just writing something down here as you were talking. The whole idea of people don't know how to communicate online. I mean, I can't say that for everybody, but it's a pretty general trend, man. That gives rise to the whole keyboard warrior syndrome too. I mean, in fact, it's in my log of topics to film and topics to discuss. I want to talk about digital citizenship and communication, because I think, I'm for those of you who don't know, and Wim, I think I mentioned this in passing. I'm a educator in the elementary school system, been doing it for the last, I think 16, 17 years. And I'm big about digital citizenship and respect, especially now online. And like, people are quick to judge, man. And in a way, I don't blame them, but in a way, I do blame them. Yeah, because you need to look at context. Why is this person saying what they're doing? There must be a reason, and people are as good as what they know, type of thing. So we need to have that type of empathy. So yeah, I just wanted to share that with you. Like I gives me a little bit more fuel to talk more in my other videos and things about digital citizenship and communication, man. But yeah, so all right, let's move on here. So I want to talk about your boxing for self-defense. I think it's a digital download, and
it's a book actually.
It's a book. Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, I want to talk about that.
It's available on Amazon, both in paper and in ebook, and you can find it in most stores and in many different online vendors. Bookstores, you can order it. I don't know if they will automatically have it in stock. I mean, it's in relation to all the other books out there, it's a pretty small book, but you can get it pretty much if you go to Amazon, for sure you'll find it. So that I wrote that in the introduction of that book, and I'll quickly run you through it. It's just that one of the fondest memories that I have from my childhood was watching the late night boxing on TV. And often my dad would sit there, and that was one of the few times when I had a good connection with my dad, because we didn't get along all that great. And that was, I mean, I remember watching guys like Roberto Duran, Sugar Ray Leonard, boxing it out, and those kind of classic fights. And that's a long time ago. I mean, that's like 35, 40 years ago and so on. So when I can't remember, is it CBS that did Boxing Night? Was it? I don't remember which channel it was. But,
CBS or NBC?
NBC, I don't remember, but it was like okay, that was always like that night. For us, it was, I think, Friday night. I guess a long time ago, because I was a child, and I'd watch those boxers, and I would be amazed at what they could do. It's like, holy crap, these guys are good. Look at that. Look at that guy eating that punch and just keep on going, and just the technicality of it. It just struck me. And for a variety of reasons, I never ended up really becoming a boxer. I did train with boxers. So some of the best beatings I ever got was in a boxing ring. And I went the Chinese martial arts route and Asian martial arts as opposed to Western martial arts. So I didn't stick with boxing. But over years, I mean, I did a lot of boxing training, or things that different interpretations of boxing. So I competed in Sanda, or sometimes called Sancho, which has like boxing-like techniques.
Tell us more about that. I'd like to know about your competition kind of experience too.
I'll finish the boxing thing first, and then I'll mention that.
Yes.
So I trained with boxers. I trained with Muay Thai guys, kickboxers. So and then just traditional English boxing as well. So my boxing is a hybrid of all those things. I am not a pure boxer. I've made that clear in the book as well. I don't claim to be a pure boxer, but I had this thing like, of all the books that I've made about Asian martial arts and the videos that I've made, I never did something for boxing. And I wanted to give something back, because I still have this idea that the impression that a lot of people still underestimate boxing as a martial arts. Still think that now it's just a sport. I'm like, have you ever fought a boxer? Have you ever trained with one of those guys?
Yep.
You really... one of the things people, I mean, it doesn't matter how good you are at karate, kung fu, whatever, I tell that to everybody, go train with a boxer. After all the years of training Asian martial arts, the first thing I taught my son when he wanted to learn was boxing.
Yes.
Gloves on, put you in the fighting stance, jab, cross, lead, hook, and so on. So that's how highly I regard boxing. And I wanted to do something to kind of counter that narrative of, boxing is not really good and you can't really defend yourself, and MMA is so much better. Which, like, the paradigm nowadays is that fighting is MMA. Years ago, like in the 80s and 90s, fighting was kickboxing and then Muay Thai. Yeah. People said, those are the real fights. And then the other guys, they're not really fighting. because yeah, but you can't do elbows and knees, and we Muay Thai guys, we can do elbows and knees. And then the UFC started getting popular, and I was like, yeah, but you also have groundwork. Ah, you guys suck, and we're awesome. So this
Right.
whole childish mentality was always,
Fashion.
yeah, I never liked that. And today, still a lot of people have this about boxing. Yeah, but it's just fists. They don't use legs, they don't clinch, they don't have a ground game, so they're not really good. I'm like, no, you don't. You should really train with a boxer. Now, I'm not saying that those things aren't true. Yes, they don't have a ground game. Yes, they don't use kicking techniques. Of
Actually,
course.
can I just interrupt for a second?
Yeah.
I
Go.
had a recent talk with Ian, and Ian's like, he knows about all this stuff. Apparently, in circa 15, 1600s, boxing had clinch work. Boxing
Sure.
had
Yeah. Yeah.
kicks.
Throws.
Boxing had some weaponry too.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
all in there, man. Yeah.
Yeah, but what I mean is like boxing
Yeah.
like nowadays,
Now,
and
yeah.
let's say even 50 years ago, even 60
Yeah.
years ago, it's
Yeah.
all gone. All the stuff is gone, and
Yeah.
traditionally speaking, an English gentleman would be able to fight with his hands, with weapons, and so on. So yeah, that is true. That all existed, but I'm mostly talking about what people see as boxing now.
Yes. Yes.
Um, and I wanted just to do something to show like, hey guys, I mean, if you want to spend like maybe 3 to 6 months in a boxing gym, you will learn a lot, even when it
Yes.
comes to self-defense. And then my goal with the book was that, okay, two people that I have in mind for that book, people who are already boxing and just in the gym as a sport, as a combat sport. So with rules, with in the ring, with rounds and so on, and they do it as a sport for a variety of reasons. Okay, how can you defend yourself with what you learn there? How do you adapt it? What are the things you have to consider, and so on? What are the differences between the ring and the street?
Mm.
That's one thing. And the other thing is that the other target audience is that people who start from scratch. They haven't done any training, and the only thing they actually can do is boxing because that's the only game in town. There's no other training available, or they only have like a friend, and the only thing he's done is boxing. So somebody's starting from scratch, and for whatever reason, the art they use is boxing. Okay, how can you learn to defend yourself with boxing? And that's the whole take of the book. The first book is out. It came out last year. I'm
Yeah.
writing Boxing for Self-Defense 1.5, which
Oh, cool.
it's going to be about combinations. And then after that is published, I will write the second volume, and that's going to be about all the illegal blows in boxing. So all the fun stuff, the dirty boxing.
Yeah.
And then there's for sure going to be a third book, which is everything that is not in the first two books. Well, the first 2.5 books then, but are relevant to the streets. For instance, weapons. How do we talk about weapons? Because again, there's no weapon training in boxing anymore. It's over.
Yeah.
So okay, but what if the guy pulls a knife with 10?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's my plan with those books, and that's how it came about. I love boxing.
Yeah.
I think it's
No,
awesome.
I can't wait. So I'm gonna treat myself to Christmas. I'm gonna buy this book. And
It's
I'm gonna stay.
2.99 for the ebooks, so it's not that expensive.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I like to have paper copies because I like to write in them and
Yeah.
things like that. So yeah, so I'm gonna pick one up, and I'm gonna stay tuned for all those other part twos and part threes that you have. I clued into that right away. It's a personal thing too, because like I said, I came across your work because I got beaten up by a boxer. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I used to hold my hands down low, and there's nothing wrong with holding your hands down low, but the tactics that I was taught in my dojo wasn't to shrimp up and move my head and things. It was basically, back and forth, angle off, more like a very stagnant asterisk type footwork.
Yeah.
And I quickly got shut down like in a matter of 10, 15 seconds in a boxing type of match. And like, I love boxing so much because I look at it as a diagnostic tool. I look at it as a delivery system too, in terms of like when I trained JKD with some of my coaches, they were saying to me that, Chris, think about boxing as a delivery system. Like, all that stuff that you've learned, karate, the kung fu and all that, mix it up into your boxing. You'll find that you'll have all types of uses for those techniques in kata and kihon, and and let me say your top 2 or 3 reasons why boxing is a good self-defense tool. How would you answer that?
Yeah. So before I answer that, I have to distinguish between
Mm.
boxing as a combat sport and boxing for self-defense. They're not
Yep.
the same thing. So that is critical to
Correct.
understand.
Yep.
There won't be a referee. There won't be a neat ring to work in. You won't be warmed up. You won't be prepared for a whole training camp. You're not going to wear gloves. It's not going to happen. So you have to account for those things first, and then look at what boxing does. So that's the first thing. One of the main reasons that I think it's an effective self-defense system is that, offensively speaking, so attacking techniques, it's really solid. Boxers hit hard.
Mm.
They hit really hard, and they hit well. They hit fast, and they think in combinations. They don't think in one punch. They know how to go from one punch to the next and so on without losing balance. So there's so many videos of street fights on YouTube and elsewhere, and on my Patreon I do every month I do a video called violence analysis, in which I take a video of some footage of a real fight or something happening to do with violence, and I break it down. One of the most common things you see is people swinging wildly, losing their balance, ending up either on the ground, in a clinch, and so on. A good boxer doesn't do that. Even if he misses his punch, he stays in balance.
Yeah.
That makes you very,
There's
very
recovery.
dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they train, I call that self-contained punches. Is the punch is in a container, so to speak, so that all the energy is delivered, but it doesn't go all over the place. It's
Yeah.
focused and it
Right.
stays there.
Yep.
And your jab is, if your jab has to hit over here, it doesn't go wide. Even if the target moves, that jab is going to hit into the target. If it misses, fine, it's going to come back.
Retract.
Well, it should.
Yeah.
A good boxer
Yeah.
should box like that.
Yeah.
So that's a big reason. And I would say this, the second most important reason is that boxers fight. They spar.
It's alive.
They apply their techniques with pressure, with a resisting opponent. Now, I'm not a big fan of gym wars, because a lot of guys they shorten their careers by being stupid, by training in the gym and going at it all the time, and a lot of ego and this and that. I loathe that kind of stuff. I think it's stupid because, I forget who one of the boxing coaches said it, but I forget who it was. Said that if you're not being paid for it, don't fight. I mean, sparring was meant to teach, to learn, to practice. It shouldn't be a fight. That's what the prize fight is for. That's because there's a prize to win. There's money to win. There's a belt to win, and so on. But and I've done plenty of those gym wars when I was younger, and ego is a nasty thing. You shouldn't let it get out of hand, but it's very normal. I think it's human that, especially young guys with a lot of energy, and that, the ego gets a little bit ruffled because that guy, managed to hit you with a good liver shot and you almost went down. You're like, I'll show him. And it's easy for that kind of stuff to get out of hand. So,
Of course.
but you're not learning anything anymore. The only thing you're doing is beating that guy, or he's beating you. And who wins? Nobody. Nobody wins. So my point is that the sparring itself is very valuable. And then when you compete, you hit full power, full blast. You try to knock the other guy out, or if you can, and if you can't, you want to beat him on points. But there's no holding back. So a boxer knows on an intimate level what it is like to land his cross, land his lead hook, land his uppercut, because he's done it over and over on people who did everything they could to not get hit by those techniques and hit them back when they tried it. So that's very different. Now, sparring and self-defense is not the same thing. If you're in some sort of street altercation and you're doing 3 5-minute rounds, there's something wrong with what you're doing.
Right.
that's not self-defense.
Yeah.
That's something else. I'm not saying it's not dangerous. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is it's not self-defense. If you want to do self-defense, well, look up what that term means in the country that you live in the jurisdiction that you live in. What does the law say about that? That's what we're talking about. So combat sports and self-defense are two very different things. And there is overlap, but the differences are important too.
Yeah, yeah. No, thank you. I concur. I'm 52 as of yesterday, and
Congrats.
thank you. I I can't spar as hard as I used to when I was younger. But I still resort to boxing because I like boxing for its fluidity and just the uh, just the fact that you can use your entire body, and recovery. Like, boxers can punch moving backwards. Boxers can punch as they're getting punched. Boxers can punch off of a shoulder. Boxers can punch off of a rebound. They can parry. I mean, it's just there's all these different strategies and tactics that you can immerse into any martial curriculum. And so that's why I see boxing as this delivery system, so to speak, highly transferable, to pretty much any martial platform, I think. So yeah, I can't wait to read your thoughts on that and get this book. But yeah, so let's talk about now your. I wanted to talk about your material and your martial arts training and how it's evolved since the last 15 years. And the reason why I bring that up is because, I came across your stuff, around this time, 2005. And
Yeah.
since then, my eyes were on your work, and I've noticed some prominent themes that pop up in the things that you do. Like, for example, striking. I would consider you a solid striker because of your Sancho Sanda background. You've also delved into kickboxing. You even have resources on kicking, very specifically, the leg kick, right? And I also noticed that you talk a lot about pragmaticism, pragmatic and functional kung fu, practical tai chi. I've seen some things on practical tai chi, and then of course this boxing for self-defense now. And also your podcast material, where you talk about coping with COVID and informative survival tips during this pandemic and things like that. So I see all of these things that you've done with a common theme of holistic martial arts, striking, grappling, and lately a lot of self-defense content. So I wanted you to talk about your training, your background, and your evolution over this last 15 years.
Yeah. So I started when I was 13 with judo and jiu-jitsu. That was like a mixed class. You did first half was judo and the next one was jiu-jitsu. Didn't do that for long. I think I was orange belt and then a little bit beyond, going towards green belt. But then I encountered my first Kung Fu teacher, and he was one of the pioneers of Kung Fu in my country, and a bouncer, very very extremely impressive guy, physically speaking, just natural athlete, incredible explosivity, one of the hardest men I've ever known. I mean, I would kick him and I would hurt my foot, and he'd just stand there laughing. He could he'd be standing there and do a backflip and then continue talking, and just an incredible athlete, and very, very strong and fast. And he did a very traditional style of Kung Fu, and then the training was very harsh. And at that stage of my life, I enjoyed that a lot, just pushing myself. Did that for a very long time. There were some issues with that style in the sense that similar things that what you went through is that you're like, well, this isn't really practical. This is too stuck in a tradition in which that the relevant parts may have gotten lost. Like, for instance, why are we doing it this way? Yep. Not that it's per se wrong, but the reasons why have changed or have gotten lost. I went on to searching. Now, as I was about, I think I was 18 when I competed at first, so I was still doing Kung Fu with my teacher, and our school was known for training really hard and sparring hard and so on. And I kind of wanted to represent our school and started competing. At first, it was Kinda, which is kind of like Kyokushinkai but without the knees, so you can kick wherever you want. You can punch only to the body.
What's that style called again?
Kinda. That's Quinda. It's kind of like Sanda, but no punching to the face. Never heard of that.
Okay.
It's very similar to Kyokushinkai.
Yeah.
Think Kyokushinkai, you kind of get the gist of it.
Yeah.
I did that, and that automatically flowed into, well, if you can't punch to the face, stupid, right? So what's next? Well, the evolution is Sanda, which is where you can punch to the head. You can grapple, so standing grappling, throws, sweeps, and so on. No groundwork.
Hmm.
And the interesting thing about Sanda at that level was that you didn't fight on a mat, you fought on a platform, which is a
Hmm.
ring without ropes, about the size of a boxing ring, but no ropes.
Is that like a lei tai?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you get kicked off or you fall off twice, you lose the round.
Ah.
And normally they would have like mattresses lying around the area,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
not always. And I saw guys, I mean, break arms and legs and get really messed up, getting kicked off or knocked out, and then fall off. And
Oh
so,
man.
and that was my eye opener towards environmental training.
Right.
Like, okay, the environment plays a huge role in your techniques. Very simple. I mean, put a boxer on a lei tai, see what happens. All of a
Right.
sudden, you can hang in the ropes. There's no corner to go into because you cannot
Yep.
back somebody into a corner. And
Yep.
if you are getting pushed towards the edge or towards the corner, your footwork is going to be radically different than when you know that you can lean away from the guy on the ropes. So I didn't understand it at the time, but that was one of the first times in which I really encountered that the context in which you do something is so important. Just one minor change, and that's it. So because I wanted to compete in Sanda and I live in a very small country with not a lot of people to train with, I went to kickboxing and Muay Thai gyms to have sparring partners basically.
Yep.
Sure, the rules were a little bit different, but for stand up it was, I mean, better than nothing. And
Right.
I
Right.
was a heavyweight. I was the heaviest guy in my class. So I mean, sparring with lighter guys forced me to be faster and more technical, but I couldn't really spar all out. So or just, I mean, they didn't have like they weren't heavy enough to do certain things to me that I would encounter in competition. So and that then eventually led to shoot fighting, MMA, and some stuff like that. And as I was doing that, I basically by chance encountered my Tai Chi Chuan teacher. Just
Okay. Yeah.
by accident, I was training with a client because I'm a personal trainer in a gym. And after we did a workout on in the with the weights, we would go in back in the aerobics place, the aerobics side of the gym, and do a little bit of sparring. And the owner, he and I got talking. He's like, wow, you do martial arts? Yeah. We've got a Tai Chi guy over here. And I was like, yeah, Tai Chi's for old people, you know. And he says, no, these guys fight. I'm like,
Yeah.
interesting. So and here you see my arrogance of
Yep. Yep.
young guy and fighter and blah blah blah, thinking I'm all that. And then Tai Chi was always the old people doing that. I don't care about that. But I was intrigued, and I went to a class. The teacher was very kind and very nice to me, and I was like, okay, it's very different. And then we did pushing hands, freestyle pushing hands. So
Good
this is
stuff.
kind of like stand-up grappling,
Yeah.
but different. It's hard to explain in words.
Toy
But
shot, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's you have contact and you basically try to break the opponent's balance by
Yep. Yep.
pushing,
Yep.
pulling, shoving, and so on. And there's different ways of doing it. And one of the ways in freestyle pushing hands that we do is called fixed step, meaning you're not allowed to step. You have to keep your feet on the ground and you're not allowed to move. And if you can force the other guy to step or he falls, then he loses. And I
Yeah.
was faced with a guy who was like almost half my size, and he would just put me on my ass every single time. I
That's
couldn't do
cool,
anything.
man. Yeah.
And the harder I tried, the more I used strength, the faster I ended up on the ground. I was like, crap. So first my ego took a really big hit, and I was fortunate enough to understand that, Wim, don't stay there, move on. And
Yep.
I said, like, if this Smurf here can do that to a big guy like me, what can I do to big guys? If I can do what he does, because he's not even the best guy in the class here. Teacher's so much
Yeah.
better than him. So I'm like, I want to learn this, and that
Exactly.
that was 25 years ago, and I'm
Yeah.
still teaching that. And it's a practical style of Tai Chi Chuan, so that means that self-defense is a big part of it. Yes, we do the forms, we do the slow stuff, but that is only so you can defend yourself better. So that's the main art I teach now when it comes to traditional martial arts. But I've done a bunch of Pencak Silat.
Okay.
Bob Orlando was my Kun Tao teacher, who sadly passed away a few years ago.
Yeah. Sorry.
And over the years, I did a bunch of just informal training with anybody from special forces guys to bouncers to some people who were from, let's say, the other side of the tracks.
Yeah.
And anything in between. If there's something to learn, I'm there. And I was very fortunate to have encountered so many really amazing people along the way that allowed me to learn something from them.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing, man. I just wanted to drill down though. Like I've seen a huge theme on self-defense.
Yeah.
Like so if you can talk about how you've uh, what made you get into that? Like you consider legal considerations.
Yeah. Yeah.
You talk about all those implications and stuff, and I've always been interested in that because, to be honest, that is a hole that I need to fill, and I'm learning slowly by slowly about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, so
So
yeah, if you can talk about that part.
sure. I got got sidetracked on answering the previous question. So you said
Yeah,
how did I evolve? Well, I
yeah, the
started with that
evolution.
kind of
Yes.
martial arts, the martial arts background that I got, and the further I got into martial arts, the more that I got interested in purely self-defense, like not
Mm,
like what does the martial arts teacher think, but what is actually happening in real life, what do police officers think, and also what do judges and lawyers think about this
yes.
once it's over. And that was one of the main reasons I kind of shifted towards that area is that I was very lucky to be on Mark McYoung's animal list, where there
Mm,
were a bunch of people from ranging from police officers to ex-CIA, FBI guys, and a lot of guys who were, like I said, from the wrong side of the tracks and had an interesting life. Um,
I
and
understand.
they talked about, well, this is what it's like, and this is this not the stuff you read in the books, but from hard won bitter experience that came at a huge cost. And I kind of shifted my direction more towards, okay, so if we're only talking about self-defense, if we take away everything that has to do with martial arts and we
Yeah.
look at violence from a different angle, and I got more into that. And then eventually I got to the point where, okay, well, I've looked about, at that angle in depth for many years. And the last few years, as I saw certain changes in society that I think are extremely worrisome and problematic, not just in the US, but all over the world, that my shift was more towards, okay, so what are the conditions in society in general that will contribute to more or less violence for the individual?
Yep.
And that to bring that together, the thing that I like to do is look at things as a puzzle and put the pieces together and see what kind of image I get. That
Yep.
means that if I have something that is presented as a whole, I will see if I can break it down into several pieces. Okay, what are the building blocks of this thing? How do they fit together? And okay, let me see how that works. And I
Mm,
love figuring that kind of stuff out. So I approached violence at first when I was younger from the martial arts perspective, and that evolved towards purely self-defense, and that evolved towards mental, psychological, legal aspects of self-defense. And now I'm pretty much coming to the societal aspect. And the further I go into, I never stopped looking at the purely technical part that you see in
mm,
martial arts. It's just
hmm.
that the other stuff came on top of it. I didn't stop training traditional martial arts because I focused on self-defense. No, it's just on top of that. And
Yes.
now I'm kind of at the point where, okay, how do all those things fit together?
Right.
And then you get to things like, for instance, okay, if you look at China 300 years ago, the techniques that were developed in martial arts styles then, well, that is a very, very different place from Ontario today, how your society is, and from Brussels today, where I live. Very, very different. If you
Yep.
go back 300 years and you compare Beijing, China, and Brussels, Belgium 300 years ago, still very different. Maybe
Yep.
more
Yep.
similar, but still very different. So how would those conditions, that specific context, influence what kind of techniques you did when it came to martial arts and self-defense? So that changes. And for me, that's where it's at right now, is that, like I said in the beginning, I don't really care like which martial art is best, or like, that guy could beat that guy. It's like, could Spider-Man beat Superman? It's kind of like, they're both not real.
Yeah.
It's fantasy, but it's fun to talk about that stuff, but it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. They're not real.
Yeah.
So, and that level of discussion, I mean, I think we all are there when we're younger. hopefully we grow out of it. So that doesn't interest me
Yeah.
anymore. But
Yeah.
more like, how does it work? How does this fit together? And why does it work the way it does? And what are all the factors involved? And how can I understand that better and then keep myself safe? And then obviously keep my family safe, and then hopefully be able to teach that to others so they can keep themselves safe.
Yeah. No, you answered that really well.